Today's gospel opens with a rather furious Jesus accusing the Pharisees of paying their tithes to look good rather than acting out of love of God and love of their neighbor. And Jesus is also challenging us to examine why we do what we do. Do we do something just because it is expected of us? Or do we want others to think well of us? Or do we choose to do good, something? Or do we choose to do something because it is the loving thing to do? I read a story from One Day at a Time by Francis Cone about a diver and his unforgettable experience. A young man raised as an atheist was training to become an Olympic diver. And the only exposure to religion he had was through his outspoken Christian friend. The young diver, of course, paid little attention to his friend's sermons, but he often heard them. And one night, the diver went to the indoor pool at his college. The lights were off, but the moon provided ample illumination for practicing in the pool, and which also had large skylights. The young man climbed up to the highest diving board, and as he turned his back to the pool and now extended his arms ready to dive, he saw his shadow on the wall. And the shadow of his body formed a cross shape, and which took him aback. For a moment, he paused and thought. And at that moment, he realized something important was happening to him for the first time. The sight of the shadow of the cross was too powerful for him, and he began to review his life. And now, maybe perhaps for the first time, he accepted that it was not so peaceful. And he wanted to change his life. And it's so strange to have something like this happen right in the middle of an evening under the moonlight sky. Instead of diving, he knelt and asked Jesus Christ to come into his life. And as the young man stood, the maintenance man walked in and turned the lights on, sensing some movement. Had he taken his dive, it would have been the end of his life. It's because there was absolutely no water. The pool had been drained for repair, and because of lack of light, he didn't notice it. God just wouldn't let him go. His love is too strong and more extensive than the young man's unbelief. The Pharisees in today's gospel miss what is essential. They pay tithes with mathematical accuracy. They're lost in trifles, giving meticulous care to the legal details, but neglecting what matters most, love of God, and which flows out to justice and love of neighbor. And the story of the young diver encountering the shadow of the cross on a diving board is a powerful reminder of how God's presence and love can manifest in unexpected ways, even when someone may not be actively seeking or recognizing it. Similarly, the Gospel of Luke highlights the importance of examining our motives and actions. It challenges us to consider whether we are merely going through the motions of religious practices, or if our actions are genuinely rooted in love of God and our neighbors. And this message encourages us to reflect on our lives and whether we sometimes prioritize legalistic observances over the more profound call for love, mercy, justice, and even repentance. In both the story and the gospel, there is an invitation to self-examination and a call to focus on what truly matters, our relationship with God and our love for others. Do we choose to do something because it is the loving thing to do. You know,